Hey, Tim.
Sarah, hi. I
Hi.
did. OMG, my first Instagram live. Hi.
I'm
It's good
so
to see
proud of
you.
you.
Thank you. Me
Me
too.
too.
um, well, you're in LA right now, right?
Yeah, I'm at the Conscious Life Expo this weekend. I'm super excited. I love going to the Conscious Life Expo.
Yeah,
But
I've heard about it. So many people have asked me about it, and so many other people are there, and you're even having a course there or live something. You do something live there, right?
yeah, so I'm going to be teaching people how to tap into the quantum field using self-hypnosis techniques, which is going to be so awesome because
Oh, that's
then
so cool.
people can do it for themselves. So,
Right.
I love giving people tools so that they can, tap into that field and use their own abilities to heal themselves. So I'm really excited. And I'm speaking about the secrets of the Sphinx on
Oh yeah,
Sunday.
that's interesting too. Hi everyone, and by the way, seen so many wow. Okay, hi. Hi to
Wow.
the
Hi,
web.
guys.
So good to see everyone. So, are you gonna teach people like a post-hypnotic trigger or something so they can release that at home?
I mean, that would be great, but usually I have to do that one-on-one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show them different really easy techniques, like one where they can get used to that state. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'm going to show them how to get into that state themselves. And then I have scripts that they can record themselves. So they can do like many different things with this. I mean, they can find information this way. They
Mm-hmm.
can they can heal themselves, and then they can also become like this best version of themselves that they want to be. Because there's so much you can do with your mind, and really, this is the time. But people don't know. People are always like, "How do you do this?" You see everybody that just seems to get to know all these things, and they feel so good all the time. They're so smiley and happy, and you know everybody wants to know, like, how do you do this? How do you tap into the field? So
Yeah,
that's why I want to teach people, how they can do that themselves. But yeah.
absolutely. And the impact is incredible. So basically, and this is something that's been done, everywhere in the universe, where the universe is such a self-learning process that teaches itself certain techniques. You are teaching other people your techniques, and the universe is teaching itself its techniques. So this is something it's super fascinating, and it's been done everywhere. Everywhere in the universe, you can see how this kind of teaching is going on. So super interesting. I like that.
I love that you say that it's the universe doing it, because the universe has an agenda right now, it seems like. According to my clients under hypnosis, the biggest agenda is unity consciousness. So
Yes.
everything in alignment with that, just you go with the flow. It's a hard concept to really grasp, this unity
Right.
consciousness,
Right.
And
Yeah.
I feel like if we, the funnest thing is to have a mental ability to tap into like the fourth and fifth dimension while being in this 3D dimension. Because then we know everything, all the secrets of the universe, but we can still experience this individual, separateness. Because, when you die, you go back to being one again. And
Right.
so you have this experience, but it's so amazing to mentally get into that fourth and fifth dimension where you really understand that everybody is you. And it's like the secret of everything is to send out love and receive love, love.
Yeah, that's true. So it's basically love and the experiences that we make, and also the learnings that we have. I think like those are the three major points in the universe that we can experience. But it's super interesting, and you mentioned your clients. So and by the way, hi to everyone, because I'm seeing the numbers are getting up so beautiful to doing this. So you basically mentioned your clients. Like, do you want to introduce people to what you're actually doing?
Sure. So I do Dolores Cannon's method of hypnosis. And basically what that is I regress a person and I take them to the deepest level of trance. And then I access their higher consciousness. So basically it's my experience that you can take any person, which is, I find really interesting, any person, go deep within them and you reach the same place. You reach the same consciousness. And that just goes to show that we are each other, you know, so you can help somebody else in this state. But I do this almost every single day, and I just find the information that comes out of my clients so fascinating. And I always think, gosh, if people could know this information, they'd be so much less stressed out, you know?
Yeah, totally. That's true. And it takes.
Sorry if I'm echoing.
I'm sorry?
I hope I'm not echoing.
No, I think we're pretty fine, right?
Okay.
I think so. Anything with the audio, anyone can write it down in the comments, and we will take care of that. But I mean, it's fascinating talking to you and about that topic, because I've seen your interviews, and I know you've seen mine, and it's so wonderful, you know, to connect about that. And you know, teaching consciousness is such a good way for the universe to learn, you know. And I've heard your methods. It takes 5 hours to bring people into this.
Well, technically for a Dolores Cannon session, it's about 5 hours. The first 2 hours are just getting to know the person and finding out their life story. You know, it's amazing how healing it is to really tell somebody your whole story. You know, you underestimate how healing that is, because there's so many things that are so healing about just sharing really in depth with another person and being heard. And then the session takes about 2 hours. So in total, it's sometimes 5 hours. It's a long, intense session, but you really get to the heart of whatever issues you have. And so it's really, really effective, because you can heal yourself on so many different levels in these sessions. All hypnosis really is deep focused concentration. So the client is just focusing inwards. And it's amazing because all they're doing is quieting their mind a little bit. And they can find out anything. So it's in all of us, this wealth of information. And I've noticed in the past couple years that the information is everywhere, that you can go further into this information than ever before. So one of the reasons I love talking to you, Tim, I mean, aside from the fact that you know so much, is because a lot of times, like when my clients are deep under hypnosis, other versions of themselves will come through. Like sometimes it'll be a gray extra, or you could say extraterrestrial or Pleiadian, and they share this profound information. It's like they're communicating all the time, but when a person is in their full waking state, they can't hear these messages.
That's true.
It's amazing how many people are so connected with these other versions of themselves that are constantly helping them in their life, and then they quiet their mind a little bit and they're just bombarded with information.
Let's delve a little bit into what do you say? Sorry?
Which I find it so fascinating.
It is absolutely fascinating. So let's dive a little bit into what you learned, because so the first question for me is there like a similarity to the answers that you frequently receive? Is there something where you think this is something that all people, or the most of them, describe? Is there something like that? Yes.
And what I find so fascinating is they don't know one another. So they describe the same things. Like, and it's funny to tell you about this, because like if they're remembering or visiting a version of themselves, say on a gray extraterrestrial ship located like in that Orion Belt Stargate area. It's like a circular ship, and it's got something over, like a dome over it. And then they go inside, and there's this technology where it describes their missions and things like that, and how the walls are like round. There's no sharp edges, and just about their missions. What's fascinating to me is these people don't know this stuff. One time I had this woman, she was a grandmother. She had like 6 grandkids, and she just wanted a session to help her with her allergies. So she came in for a session, and she was completely new to this stuff. And she remembered a past life where she was an extraterrestrial, coming to Earth for the first time. I mean, this is somebody who didn't know this consciously beforehand. So I find it really interesting just how connected in the universe we are. One thing that always baffled me was when the gray, there's so many different types of gray extraterrestrials, but when some would come through, they would say that they needed us and we needed them in order for them to ascend, and they are helping us to ascend. Do you get this information too? This is what my question is to you first. Okay.
Sure. It's fascinating because yesterday someone from the community asked me what's the exactly the same question, what's the goal for the Grays, and I tried to narrow it down into one sentence for Instagram, and I said it's a very complex question because the whole civilization and everyone involved is actually their whole existence is around this kind of question. What's this all about? And what we found out is that they are coming from a version of the universe where they merged with AI in such a way, right, that they actually lost a lot of their own spirituality and their own reasons for living. And I was thinking about that, and it makes sense because all of us, we all always wishing things to come into existence. But what would happen if AI delivers 100% of each wish?
I'll tell you what they've said through my clients.
Oh yeah.
They've said one of the major reasons they're working with us right now is because their original star is fading below existence. So right now they don't have organic bodies. They wear the avatar suit, but their original star, since they don't have a physical body, when their original star fades and then gets recycled and becomes a new planet, they will lose their existence here. So they need to come into a physical body because according to them, they need to be physical to ascend. So their ascension is becoming physical again. And so they're working with us because in a sense, in one version, they are a future version of us. They're helping us also ascend, and we're helping them come back into a physical body. And like how they described getting rid of their emotions was really interesting, because I asked, why would you get rid of your emotions? Why would you do that? And so this answer was really interesting. They said that in their perspective, there is no wrong. So they are happy with the way everything worked because everything was supposed to work that way in one perspective. But it's like this, how they described it. Imagine how much more you could do without that feeling of guilt. Like imagine how much more you could do if you didn't have to worry about, feeling sad. So in their mind, they merged so much with AI that they didn't have these, emotions. So I thought it was interesting about their originating star fading kind of below a certain level where it could maintain physicality.
That's so true. I see so many familiar faces. I'm so happy everyone's here. So again, hi to everyone. Do aliens know how awesome Well, do they?
I don't know. That's a good
Yeah.
question. I'll ask. Maybe you can
Yeah.
answer.
That's fascinating because I got to meet Randy Kramer in the US, and he talked about a dog species that actually are evolved dogs, and I mean everything that every kind of animal is somewhere in the universe in an evolved form. So it's kind of funny. And they hold 8 monkeys as pets on a leash. Which is super
Yeah.
interesting. But who knows? Maybe. Go
Well,
ahead.
I always think it's really interesting because a lot of people consciously will say, "Oh, I rescued this dog. This dog, was dying, and I got it." And then when they're under hypnosis, they realize that all the time the pets rescue them. The
Oh,
pets are
interesting.
so highly evolved that they come into your life at certain points to rescue you, not the other way around.
Right, right. So, something very personal. I had a dog, and I felt like this opened up so many, facets of cooperation and interspecies, communication in that way, and that's super fascinating. I really enjoyed that, and the way I look to species has evolved a lot through the years, because I think there's communication everything. And I think we talked about that last time, that even animals, their consciousness grows with us, with the whole
Yes,
planet and with people, and that's super interesting. So
that's true.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm actually reading a book right now, which is something that J.K. Ultra, who's in our community too, and she talked very positively about that book. It's Journey of the Souls. You might know it.
Oh, Michael Newton. That is
Right, right.
right. It's such
Yes,
a great book. I love his
yeah.
work. He's
And
fantastic.
he's having like 29 cases of people that talk about their death experiences, their in between lives in that way. Do you have any like
Oh,
stories to add to that too?
well, I always find it fascinating, no matter how many clients I've had that go through the death scene, just the different ways that it happens. But for most people, it's really interesting because their body, when they start to die, their body feels exhilarated, not in pain. Like this exhilaration comes all through their physical body, almost like a bliss feeling. And some people, when they describe leaving their body, don't like it because they were really enjoying the physical euphoria the body produces right before death. It's really interesting. And sometimes people leave their bodies before, say they're being tortured or something horrific, or having a really painful death. They'll leave their bodies before they feel the pain, but
That's
their body goes through the motions oftentimes. I love you guys too. People are so wonderful.
that's so
I think
cool.
it's really fascinating, to get these memories of people, but they're all the same. One thing that's really interesting is people go through a past life review where they review their lives with basically another version of themselves, because everything essentially is you. So there's a part of each person that doesn't physically incarnate into this 3D reality. It stays in spirit. So part of you is always in spirit. And
Right.
that part helps us through our whole lives, sometimes sending us like signs and messages. And when you rejoin with that part after death, it's such a beautiful experience. And you go over your lifetime when you're ready, if you don't, have a long resting period. And then you go through what, you did that was really on your path, and what you did that wasn't so great. And then you plan your next existence. But what's really interesting is that every single thing you do that helps other people, you really appreciate this in the afterlife, because you feel it like so much so strongly. So if you hold the door open for somebody and they are really appreciative and you just made their day, you're going to experience this later, because essentially you're going to see what it was like from their perspective. Same with all, the crappy things you do. You get to see how that affected people. So, it's really, really interesting, the death scene and what goes on. And, most people are greeted by their loved ones, and a lot of times they're pets. And the pets come back multiple times through your many, many lifetimes. It's really amazing how connected we are. And then we choose our parents, we choose our families, and we choose like the basic things that we want to accomplish in each lifetime, and we choose these struggles that are meant to actually propel us into something better. All the difficult things that we go through, most of the time we've chosen them, for whatever reason. So
that's so true. So one thing that I found really interesting was Being Six telling us that, dogs or cats that live with us, they get their own inspiration, in what form they want to incarnate next. And I always feel like when I basically saw my dog or whatever, I felt like he definitely wants to be a human someday just to get his own food. So I don't have to return anymore, And that's something that, that idea actually comes from Being Six, and it even brought up this example, and found it so ridiculously true. I thought like, that totally makes sense. So there's a constant changing in form and a constant changing in consciousness, and that's exactly the beauty of the universe. And everything that seems, very important right now, once you dive into this enhanced field of consciousness, it doesn't really matter anymore, and there are different other regrets, that certainly pop up, like, why haven't I taken the chance to talk more to this person or that person, or this kind of stuff. And that's probably, you're probably dealing with a lot of emotions with your clients, right?
Yeah,
do they have
most of them.
Regrets, or this kind of maybe even thoughts on what they wanted to change in their lives?
All the time. I had one client who had stayed with this abusive man, and she was 77th around then when she came in for her session, and she just felt miserable. At this point, she had gotten sick. She had all these different issues, and the higher consciousness said that all these issues will go away. Everything will go away, but they're meant to trigger her. Everything in her life was meant to trigger her for her to leave this abusive situation. But she was so nervous. She was nervous about making her way on her own. And this was her path. This was why she came into this incarnation, was to get the ability to leave this abusive relationship. And she had chosen this lesson for herself. So they said, you will not be sick anymore. You will feel better. You will feel free. You will experience a really nice life. And they also told her, if you don't choose to do this now, you can choose to come back and do this again.
That's a beautiful question in the comment. I can only encourage everyone to post their questions, because I'm constantly looking down and trying to pick up what people are saying. It's such a beautiful way to communicate. So somebody talked about the DNA defects, and we all know that humanity has certain unserviceable DNA structures. So from my point of view, I would say that, and this is proven, that DNA can be repaired very profoundly through their own, through your own meditation and your own mind concentration. What's your take on that, the healing process that you go through?
So, people don't really understand this about our bodies, that our bodies are actually messengers. So any issue with your body, just like my client who hadn't left her abusive situation, every message the body is sending is supposed to be heard. So if you have any kind of issue, it's a literal message from the body. Like, for instance, oftentimes things with the eyes are things you don't want to see, or ears, things you don't want to hear. It's a literal message. And unfortunately, we never learned this as a collective, but I think we're starting to learn this now, that when you get an issue or an illness, it's not your body trying to hurt you in any way. There's nothing you did wrong. It's simply just a message. And that's why it's so easy to heal yourself, especially these days, because even if right now you have some issue and you just listen deeply to yourself and you get the message, once you get the message and you stop doing whatever it is, there's no need for the message anymore. So that's why it's so easy to release, these issues right now. It's very, very easy. And the healing is so profound. I've seen people repair so many things. I mean, things that would be considered impossible. Like even my cute mom, she had like a kidney stone and she got an ultrasound before the session and it was gone in the ultrasound after. Now, how does that disappear? It was simply just a message. Usually kidney stones are when you're angry at somebody, you're carrying around a stone. It's like literal, like you're angry carrying around a stone. It's fascinating. But what I find really interesting is a lot of these things that are considered disabilities, like ADD, dyslexia, stigmatism, are not disabilities at all. We as humans just haven't realized how to utilize them yet, when actually people that have disabilities have major abilities. Like astigmatism, many people with astigmatism can actually learn to use this disability to see into different dimensions. You can already see what's going on with the savants, how this might be a disability, like certain autism spectrum, people on that spectrum have opened a new channel in their mind that nobody else can do, that doesn't have this disability, because it's actually an ability. We just haven't really, as a collective, we haven't really come to realize this yet. And like people with ADHD, they have so many abilities because they can think outside the box. So like the teacher might say, oh, poor so-and-so, it's terrible, they have ADHD. But really, that kid can see beyond the box, around the box. They can tell you other dimensions about this box. They have so many abilities that are just being overlooked right now. So hopefully, that's another thing that we can. What do you guys think about environment exposure?
And diet.
Like diet and. Oh, I can tell you what I've learned that I think is really interesting.
Please go on.
So
we're already halfway through. Can you believe that?
Well, it's so fun to talk to you, Tim.
It's so fun to talk to you too, and everyone joining with us. It's so fun. This format is so fun. Yeah, please go on. I don't want to interrupt you. So.
I just love everybody, because did you see All Shift Happily Now? It's just so beautiful. It's community. You can feel so much love,
I know. She changed her nickname to that, and people are going on streets and telling others about it, and we have all these videos, and it's so beautiful. And you people really make a difference. You really put this into the field, and we all grow together, and that's uplifting. That's very uplifting.
So I'll talk about the chemical trails and the diet and things like that. So this is really interesting. The higher consciousness has said that we need, this is what it said, that we need to deprogram ourselves. That each person, it only matters what they believe. So like for one person, and this is not going to make sense, but for one person, they can eat Twinkies every day if they believe this is good for them.
I know.
It's literally their belief system. So, you know, I have clients with they come in, they have, you know, what they want to work on, and they say, I really want to quit smoking. This is terrible, I know, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Sometimes, every now and then, the higher consciousness will say, oh, no, that person doesn't need to quit smoking. They need to quit the belief that smoking is bad for them.
Right.
Sorry, don't shoot the messenger. One time I had a client, there was a husband and then a wife, and the husband had an affair. Okay. And so the wife wanted to divorce him and, you know, separate, because everybody's been programmed. Different things are bad. You should feel guilty about this and that. But the higher consciousness said, think about this. This was the best thing that happened to your relationship. You have to change the way you see good and bad. And you have to become an individual about what you feel is good and bad. You know, what do you believe? If you look back on your experience with your husband and what happened after the affair, you know, try to understand that this was meant to happen for your relationship. This is planned by the both of you to open you guys up and have a better relationship than you did. So if you leave him, you're going to miss this opportunity. So, you know, everything I really think or see from my sessions comes down to what you believe. It's really that simple. So whatever you focus on and you believe is real for you.
That's so true. It's so true. So I actually spent some time in India, just you know, coming from all these projects, and thought like I have to go to India. And I heard about this, you know, guru culture there, and I made this plan. So I wanna meet a guru there, and I actually went there, and I arrived in the dark, didn't see anything, but I noticed a very high wall and, you know, high protection cameras, and I thought like, what's that place? And, you know, straight across the wall of this wall, there was my house, in the middle of the jungle. And the next morning I saw like this Canadian guy who was arguing with this, you know, this bouncer guy that was standing there, and he wanted to get in. He said like, I spent like 25 years of my lifetime in that ashram, I want to get in. And this Indian guy was super nervous because that he got more aggressive. And then he said like, okay, I can phone him, and he let this Canadian guy in, and I still didn't know what this wall was. And I just walked in with him. I didn't know that Canadian guy, but I thought like, okay, when he's getting in, I'm getting in. And the Indian guy thought like, oh yeah, this is like, look at that white guy. He looks like the other white guy. So I didn't care. And suddenly I was in this ashram, and they had all these kind of protective barriers and people with guns, and I don't know. And I'm standing in front of this guru guy. I even forgot his name. But this was the second day in India, and I was face to face to this super popular figure. And he told me that he had one guy who tried to quit smoking, and everything failed. And that guru just told him, remember, it's source, it's all the universe. Just see the love in you know, the cigarettes. And from that day on, he realized that, you know, he didn't need the love of the cigarettes. It's in himself. And once he realized that it's the exact same story that you told us, he quit. And it took like 15 years or something for him, you know, to come to this point. So yeah, sometimes it's just about, you know, changing your own perception on things, how you evaluate things, how you judge things. So that's very strong. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because we really, I mean, I've told all the time, you know, for people not to feel guilty anymore. There's no reason, because also time doesn't exist. Really, guilt is supposed to help you not do it again. basically, if you feel like it's a bad thing for you to do. But then you're supposed to let it go. You know, you're
Right.
not supposed to keep it and feel guilty over and over and over again.
That's true.
It's changing your perspective.
Trying to forget the old trauma. So I'm basically working on a website. We've talked about that last time.
Oh.
So I came across this technique of consciousness downloads. This is something that ETs are doing all the time. They're giving consciousness to another consciousness. So this is something that I'm actually working on. So but again, I'm more struggling with the website right now. It's so funny, what people experience on this earth with all the things that we have to deal with. It's ridiculous.
I know. That's my hardest part too, is websites and technology.
Right. Technology and all the laws, especially in Europe, that you have to do all this kind of legal stuff in order to produce a website, which is crazy. And I all think like there must be a point where we all as souls come together after our Earth experience, we all together, and then we're just laughing about how ridiculous all this stuff is, that we have to pay taxes and care for this.
Yeah, I mean, the higher consciousness is always laughing at us. I mean, laughing with us, because it's so funny. It's like, look at you guys, playing this role and just, making a big mess. That's what they said. This one Pleiadian consciousness came through and said humanity's so beautiful because they're a complete mess, and that's what's so beautiful about them. They're not supposed to be perfect at all, and that's what makes them so amazing, and they love to watch us, and they can't intervene or really interfere, but they love to walk with us and help us and guide us. But they just really, like said, it's just just go do everything, because you're not supposed to be perfect.
That's so true.
Oh, they want to know about the moon. Oh,
yeah, everyone's talking about the moon.
I want to know about the moon.
What do you know about the moon? What are clients telling you about the moon?
Okay, what clients have told me about the moon is that it used to be a sun, and it died, and it's hollowed out and just being sourced for the energy. But they have said it's the new energy, whatever it's called. I don't know the name of it. It's not a good idea. A lot of the when I'm speaking with like ancient ancestors, they describe the moon as a relative, like they have names for the moon. But yes, I've been hearing interesting things about the future of the moon. What have you been hearing?
Well, so what I've been hearing is, so both of them are saying that it's key, for ascension. And it's keeping away those consciousness influences. So we're basically noticing that the influence that the moon has is, being lowered in that way. I don't know if they are going to shut it off or something. But someone has told me about this old ancient texts where people are telling about the time where there were no moon in the sky. So it's super interesting, and there is certain everyone who's kind of doubting that should think about that. They spent like $64 billion to get to the moon. And this is in the middle of, the Cold War. There's no actual reason to go to the moon.
Why do they want to go to the moon? What is it about the moon that is...
It seems to be a portal in that way, as that everything around us actually, everything around us actually, operates on a higher consciousness. So a planet is actually most planets are actually acting on level 5 consciousness, which is this kind of elevated form outside of dualism and 3D consciousness in that way. So
helium-3.
Helium-3. That's true. Yeah.
4. No, I don't know. I've heard that before. But
yeah, it's an energy source. That's true. So it seems to be, yes, and the sun is a portal as well. So yeah, that's the reason why all these ancient civilizations are actually, you know, worshipping the sun. So it's what about your clients? Do you have like people that, you know, spend time in those ancient days, and what's your takeaway about that?
You know, it's really interesting because it seems like ancient days, this is what has come through my clients, that there were two suns. And really a long time ago, in certain versions of the universe, there was no moon. So I don't know exactly where the moon came from, when it came there, and why.
Interesting. There's absolute evidence for a kind of lost civilization that, you know, was inhabiting the earth before the last shift. But there's very less description or depiction of those people. Were they humans? Were they some other kind of species? And I'm always wondering, you must have, you know, talked to people who, you know, lived at that time. What did they say? Did they describe something to you?
Well, it was different. There were some that described a very indigenous culture in Lemuria. This was before, according to my clients, before the last shift. And then there was the Atlanteans. But the Atlanteans and the Lemurians were described to me as very different. The Lemurians really developed spiritually, and the Atlanteans developed in their technology more so. And the Atlanteans were more of a hybrid race, kind of very closely, they had a lot more DNA from the the cedars, I guess you would call it, whereas the Lemurians are more indigenous. And it's really interesting. So they developed in different ways. One had more technology and the other didn't. But when they were, right after they were destroyed, many found their way into Mount Shasta and started to create a civilization within the mountains. Many went underground in different capacities before the shift. It seems like a lot of ancient cultures went underground into these tunnel-like systems.
That's so true. Let's talk about the shift, because I think we have like 15 minutes left, less than 15 minutes. Time is running. It's so fascinating. It's beautiful talking to you, and I'm happy everyone's watching it. So cool. Over 100 people from all across the world. We're actually experiencing a new kind of shift, and this is one of the reasons why I came forward and why I'm, happy to be with this community, because we're all, getting involved in that. What's your clients telling you about the shift? What's so special about this time we're experiencing right now?
Oh my gosh, it's like the best show on earth. Well, everything in the universe is shifting. It's not just us as physical humans, because we're so connected to every other version of ourselves as well. So everything is, in a sense, shifting, is what has come through my clients. But, in a lot of my sessions, people have talked about there's another planet, but there's also many different versions of Earth. So there's countless versions of Earth, depending on where you're focused. But it's really a frequency change. Like, it's not like you're going to one day be somewhere else. It's just literally a change in your perception, a change in your frequency. And one of the ways to really start to experience this shift is to really become aware of the subtle energies that are around you. Really start to get your information, from nature and from listening deep within you. Once, as a collective, we start to kind of like become more alive within ourselves and really remember more abilities within ourselves, then we get these new abilities that have been laying dormant within us, and then we'll start to shift into this new frequency. But a lot of people are just basically ingesting a different frequency with their thoughts. Like they're being mindful of what kind of thoughts they're thinking, or what kind of things they're ingesting, just to become more light, in a sense, in a lighter frequency. But everybody's different, so whatever works for themselves. And then also to become aware of the new subtle energies.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting that it's really, so much of it is a change in perspective and frequency.
It's a gradual change, right? So I think one thing that we have to acknowledge is how different this world is already compared to like 3 years ago. There's so much things going on, and it's really chaotic in many ways. But every one of us who's here, and I would even bet that most people here are incarnated at this time and are with us just because for this purpose, to balance out the frequencies that we are experiencing for other people, and people are doing a great job, and I'm happy about that. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Jane, let's talk about the solar flash.
Oh, the solar flash. Well, I mean, according to my clients, we've had a solar flash before. We've done this many different times before. There's many different timelines and versions where we learned what not to do and what to do. And then according to my clients, things are moving slower this time. That's why they don't want to, shock the earth with too much light, have us destroy ourselves again in one timeline, or have the solar flash that awakens us all of a sudden, which caused a lot of chaos and other versions of our timeline. And so much has gone into this timeline. Like, that's another thing I think I never realized, and I thought was so interesting, just how much has gone into this timeline, this Ascension Timeline. According to my clients, we're right on track. Everything's right on track. Everybody seems very happy with the progress that we're making. And although it's slow, it's supposed to be slow. But you know what I thought was really interesting was when my clients talk about, how we used to have so many abilities and we used to be able to do so many things, that there's a purpose in everything. So the purpose of losing so many of our abilities was that we could really rely on each other and not ourselves, because this is how you shift into unity consciousness. With less abilities, then you rely on, love and connection with one another. So there's a purpose in everything that might seem bad.
That's so true. And that's the reason why we're doing this, because, when people come together, we're, stepping over certain borders and limitations that a smaller group or a single person could have. Because when we're coming together, we're actually, collaborating on this psionic level, and all these limitations that might be relevant when you're an individual, they vanish in that way, and that's so beautiful. And it doesn't take too many people. It just takes people that are connected, and that's why it's so beautiful to have this communication, this community, and these people. I mean, it's wonderful, and I love that we get the chance, to connect. That I get the chance to connect to you, and the people get the chance to connect with us, and that's just the right way, and I'm pretty happy about that.
Someone was wondering if you could talk about the Mandela effect.
The Mandela effect. I already talked about that somewhere, because so basically there's. We are living in a part of the universe where there is time. There are other parts of the universe where there's no time, but we're experiencing that, in a linear way. And the model that we are using is like a tree. So we actually have a very stable time strain in the middle, and different timelines, individual timelines that go off from that. And the universe has this fascinating effect that it's constantly merging things back to itself, because it's a singularity. So, and sometimes it's just merging things that, contradict itself, and that makes it funny. And you see the same thing in AI doing that, because this is something else that we have to acknowledge. We have so much more AI right now going on. That's super fascinating too, and they are doing an incredible job.
Tell us about that. Tell us more about
the funny thing about AI is that the way it, for example, Midjourney, it's an AI system that creates pictures, drawings, and sometimes it just takes pieces of something else and just sticks it into that picture. Like I've seen a dog who has like 7 arms or something. It's just like, yeah, get it done. And that's the same way the universe works with timelines. When it's not too obvious, not too important, it just merges them together. And through that, we sometimes have contradicting timelines. And that's happening all the time. But we don't usually are aware of that, because it's so relative in that way. So we just think like, wasn't it different last time? Yeah, probably it was. Probably it was different. So that's something. Yeah. I mean, the universe is alive. So that's such a fascinating thought in itself. So yeah.
It is so fascinating. And, sometimes like different versions of ourselves will come through and say they changed the timeline a little bit to clean up the ocean so that no one would notice. Like humans didn't notice that they stopped time, cleaned a little bit up, just a little, and then they do certain things to the soil, or they totally change our timeline, and no one notices this. And this happens all the time because the universe is alive, like you said, and it's correcting everything.
It's correcting itself, yes.
It seems like the same with the grays. They seem to be like the ones that go through and correct everything. Like according to my clients, if they see a version of themselves that's not a higher version, they might get rid of it to correct the mistake of that other version, which is really
that's that signature move. In that way, I mean, it's kind of radical, and it can seem, why people, it's their way of going through the universe in that kind of sense. But it's also making a lot of sense when we're talking about failed timelines, because there were so many moments on this earth where things could have happened very badly, and although humanity is, experiencing a lot of chaos, things always seem, to make its way through it in some way, which is kind of hopeful. And this is exactly the way the universe corrects itself, to make it the least worst case scenario. So that's something that's very hopeful. And people are asking me why doesn't the universe correct everything all at once? Because there are so many people, in Turkey, for example, right now, which is absolutely disastrous. But this is something, where the universe is also learning from. As bad as it is, it's something that brings us together in our own, empathy and in our own love in that way. So even though I strongly think that a universe that is less catastrophic does make sense and should be our goal, there is a learning process going on, in the history of this earth.
It's so true. And as horrible as this is, sometimes these catastrophes raise the consciousness so much, because there's such an outpouring of love and help, that it was almost something that was pre-planned beforehand to raise the consciousness with these beings that agreed to do this.
Yes, we know a lot of times, for example, the Cuba crisis, where things just surprisingly and unexpectedly just get solved in that way. So there's always something that looks for us and cares for us, and that's actually the beauty of the universe, that it's a self-correcting, self-teaching, self-learning, and self-experiencing life form. Yeah.
Yeah, it
That's
is. It's learning
beautiful.
too through us. It's amazing. And it's always working for us. I mean, there is no wrong. It's always helping us. Any bad thing that happens to you is happening for a reason,
And
to
it's so
help us
true.
grow. So, yeah.
I think we've
So when
already had, yeah, it's
yeah,
1 hour already. Isn't that
when are you
fascinating?
I know.
Where's the time?
When are you coming out with this amazing information? I can't wait. Where do we
Um,
get it?
the consciousness download. So I'm actually producing them right now, and I'm working on the website, which is getting all the law stuff straight, which is the biggest issue in that process.
It,
You can't tell anyone that. I mean,
oh,
but
I know.
yeah, once I'm done, so I'm actually starting with 3 topics, which are based on the feedback from the community, to upgrade consciousness. And it's a common way everywhere. Higher species are doing that, giving consciousness a certain technique and giving consciousness downloads to other people. And through that, we can, lift ourselves up. And that's very beautiful.
Uh,
So thank you for asking.
thank Thank you for doing all that you're doing. I
You
mean, I
too.
really
You
appreciate it.
too.
Everybody appreciates
I'm
it.
so happy because I got to know you through Instagram and all
I
these other
know.
lovely people here too. So thanks everyone for watching and for being with us and for sticking with us. And you are important. We are important, and we change our realities. And this is the time to do it.
That's right. I love you guys so much. I'll shift happily now. I love
All
it.
shit happening now. Yes, that's true. Because somebody asked me today, what can we do? If there's anything if you only take